You're addicted to your own destruction, and you love it. Every morning you wake up and voluntarily participate in systems that crush your spirit, commodify your desires, and turn your life into raw material for someone else's profit. But here's the terrifying part. You don't just tolerate this. You actively crave it. You consume entertainment that makes you dumber, food that makes you sicker, relationships that make you lonelier, and work that makes you more alienated. And when someone tries to offer you genuine alternatives, you reject them as boring, unrealistic, or threatening. This isn't weakness or stupidity. This is ideology functioning perfectly. Slavoj Žižek, the psychoanalytic genius who sees through the matrix of contemporary consciousness, has spent decades revealing the most disturbing truth about human psychology under late capitalism. Ideology doesn't work by hiding reality from you. It works by making you love your own enslavement. You don't need to be forced into chains when you've been trained to forge them yourself. Žižek understood something that explodes every comfortable assumption about human motivation. You don't simply endure suffering under capitalism. You've been programmed to enjoy it. This isn't masochism in the simple sense. It's what Lacanian psychoanalysis calls jouissance, a form of painful pleasure that becomes addictive precisely because it hurts. You're not just trapped in the system, you're psychologically dependent on the very forces that oppress you. Look at your own life honestly. Why do you watch news that fills you with anxiety and rage? Why do you scroll through social media that makes you feel inadequate and envious? Why do you work jobs that drain your life force? Why do you buy products that promise happiness but deliver emptiness? The standard answer is that you're forced to, that you have no choice. But Žižek reveals a darker truth. You choose these things because they provide a familiar form of suffering that feels more real than genuine pleasure. This is the genius of contemporary ideology. It doesn't prohibit enjoyment. It commands a specific type of enjoyment that serves power. You're not told to be miserable. You're told to enjoy your misery in precisely the ways that make you more controllable. Your suffering becomes your identity. Your pain becomes your purpose. Your alienation becomes your authenticity. Think about how you relate to stress, exhaustion, and overwhelm. These aren't just unfortunate byproducts of modern life. They've become badges of honor, proof that you're living correctly. You compete with others over who's busier, more tired, more overwhelmed. You've internalized the Protestant work ethic so completely that rest feels like moral failure, and pleasure feels like betrayal of your higher calling to productive suffering. This perverse pleasure extends into every area of life. You enjoy being outraged by politics because it makes you feel morally superior without requiring actual action. You enjoy being anxious about your health because it makes you feel responsible without requiring lifestyle changes. You enjoy being overwhelmed by choices because it makes you feel free without acknowledging your fundamental powerlessness. The most sophisticated form of ideological control isn't naive belief. It's cynical awareness combined with continued participation. Žižek identified this as the dominant consciousness of our time. I know very well that this is bullshit, but I act as if I believe it anyway. This cynical distance doesn't free you from ideology. It's how ideology operates most efficiently in postmodern societies. You know that advertising manipulates you, but you buy the products anyway. You know that politicians lie, but you vote anyway. You know that social media is designed to be addictive, but you scroll anyway. You know that your job is meaningless, but you work anyway. This isn't cognitive dissonance. It's ideological sophistication. The system doesn't need your genuine belief. It only needs your behavioral compliance. This cynical consciousness serves a crucial psychological function. It allows you to maintain your sense of critical awareness while avoiding the responsibility that comes with genuine critique. You get to feel smart and superior without the difficult work of actually changing anything. Your cynicism becomes a form of passive resistance that actually enables the very systems you claim to see through. The most perverse aspect of this dynamic is that it makes you complicit in your own manipulation. When you participate cynically, you can't claim innocence or victimhood. You become a co-conspirator in your own exploitation, which makes resistance psychologically more difficult. How can you rebel against a system you've consciously chosen to participate in? This cynical distance also destroys the possibility of authentic alternatives. When you know that everything is equally manipulative and corrupt, you lose the ability to distinguish between different forms of manipulation. All politics becomes equally suspect, all institutions equally fraudulent, all promises equally empty. Your sophistication becomes a form of learned helplessness. Žižek reveals that ideology operates through what psychoanalysis calls fetishistic disavowal, the psychological mechanism that allows you to know something and not know it simultaneously. This isn't simple denial. It's a more complex splitting of consciousness that enables functional psychosis on a mass scale. The formula is, I know very well, but nonetheless. You know very well that capitalism is destroying the planet, but nonetheless you drive to work every day. You know very well that fast fashion exploits workers, but nonetheless you buy cheap clothes. You know very well that social media companies sell your data, but nonetheless you share intimate details of your life online. This fetishistic structure allows the system to acknowledge its own contradictions without resolving them. Environmental destruction becomes climate change that everyone acknowledges while changing nothing fundamental. Economic exploitation becomes inequality that everyone deplores while maintaining the systems that create it. Political corruption becomes polarization that everyone criticizes while participating in the very dynamics that sustain it. The beauty of fetishistic disavowal is that it immunizes the system against critique. When everyone already knows the problems, pointing them out seems redundant. When the system openly acknowledges its own contradictions, traditional forms of ideology critique become ineffective. How do you criticize a system that has already incorporated its own critique? This creates what Žižek calls ideology at its purest, belief that no longer needs to believe in itself. The system doesn't require your faith or enthusiasm. It only requires your continued participation in the face of your own knowledge of its destructiveness. Your awareness becomes a form of collaboration rather than resistance. Traditional authority said, "You must not." But contemporary authority says, "You must enjoy." Žižek identifies this shift as fundamental to understanding how power operates in late capitalist societies. You're not oppressed by prohibition, but by the commandment to optimize your experience, maximize your pleasure, and live your best life. This creates a new form of tyranny, the tyranny of mandatory enjoyment. You must enjoy your work, not just do it. You must enjoy your relationships, not just maintain them. You must enjoy your consumption, not just consume. You must enjoy your freedom, not just exercise it. When enjoyment becomes obligatory, it ceases to be enjoyable and becomes a form of labor. Look at how this operates in contemporary culture. You're not just supposed to have sex. You're supposed to have great sex, mind-blowing sex, sex that validates your identity and enhances your well-being. You're not just supposed to eat. You're supposed to have food experiences that express your values and optimize your health. You're not just supposed to work. You're supposed to find your passion and align your career with your authentic self. This commandment to enjoy creates what Žižek calls superego anxiety. The anxiety that you're not enjoying your life enough, not making the most of your opportunities, not living up to your potential for happiness. You feel guilty not for being too hedonistic, but for not being hedonistic enough. You worry not that you're too selfish, but that you're not optimizing your self-care correctly. The result is a population of people who are simultaneously more free than any humans in history and more anxious about their freedom. Every choice becomes a burden. Every opportunity becomes a source of stress. Every pleasure becomes a performance that must be optimized and documented for social validation. Every ideological system, Žižek argues, has an obscene underside that contradicts its official values but actually enables its functioning. The obscene underside of liberal capitalism isn't hidden corruption or secret authoritarianism. It's the openly acknowledged world of exploitation, manipulation, and violence that coexists with official commitments to freedom, equality, and human rights. While the official ideology celebrates individual freedom and democratic choice, the obscene underside operates through algorithmic manipulation, behavioral psychology, and social engineering. While the official system promotes equality and justice, the obscene underside maintains vast inequalities through financial instruments, legal structures, and military force. This obscene underside isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature. The system needs you to know about its own contradictions because your knowledge neutralizes your potential resistance. When everyone already knows that politicians are corrupt, elections are manipulated, and corporations control everything, traditional forms of political critique become ineffective. Social media perfectly exemplifies this dynamic. Everyone knows that platforms are designed to be addictive, that algorithms manipulate behavior, that data is harvested and sold. This knowledge is openly discussed, widely reported, and constantly criticized. But this very acknowledgement serves to legitimize continued participation. Since everyone knows how the system works, your continued use becomes a freely chosen preference rather than manipulation. The obscene underside also provides outlet for impulses that would otherwise threaten the system. Porn provides sexual transgression that prevents genuine sexual liberation. Violent entertainment provides vicarious rebellion that prevents actual revolution. Conspiracy theories provide explanations for systemic dysfunction that prevent systematic analysis of actual power structures. The most successful ideological operation in contemporary society is the claim that we live in a post-ideological world where pragmatism has replaced dogma, markets have replaced politics, and individual choice has replaced collective struggle. This isn't the absence of ideology. It's ideology at its most effective, invisible because it presents itself as the simple acknowledgement of reality. You're told that there is no alternative to market capitalism, not because markets are morally superior, but because they're supposedly more realistic than any other system. You're told that politics is about choosing the lesser evil, not because evil is inevitable, but because genuine alternatives are supposedly impractical. You're told that individual success depends on personal responsibility, not because social conditions don't matter, but because social change is supposedly impossible. This end of ideology operates by naturalizing historically contingent arrangements as eternal facts of life. Capitalism becomes human nature. Inequality becomes natural difference. Competition becomes biological necessity. Hierarchy becomes social evolution. what are actually recent historical developments become presented as timeless truths about the human condition. The genius of this approach is that it makes fundamental critique seem naive and unrealistic. Anyone who suggests that things could be organized differently becomes labeled as utopian, idealistic, or out of touch with reality. The boundaries of acceptable political discourse shrink to technical questions about how to manage existing systems rather than whether those systems should exist at all. This creates what Žižek calls the politics of the lesser evil, a form of political participation that systematically eliminates genuine alternatives while maintaining the illusion of choice. You can vote for different candidates who represent minor variations on the same basic approach. You can buy different products that serve the same economic functions. You can choose different lifestyles that express the same underlying values. Contemporary capitalism has created a sophisticated form of control through the ideology of authentic experience. You're not just selling your labor, you're expressing your authentic self through your career choices. You're not just consuming products, you're curating experiences that reflect your values and identity. You're not just participating in the economy, you're living your truth through market participation. This transformation of economic participation into authentic self-expression makes resistance psychologically more difficult. How can you rebel against a system that claims to be liberating your true self? How can you critique structures that supposedly exist to enable your personal growth and self-actualization? The ideology of authenticity operates by making every form of compliance feel like personal choice, and every form of resistance feel like self-betrayal. When your job becomes your calling, quitting feels like abandoning your purpose. When your consumption becomes lifestyle, changing your habits feels like losing your identity. When your political participation becomes values expression, changing your positions feels like moral compromise. This creates what Žižek calls ideology with a human face, oppression that presents itself as liberation, control that masquerades as freedom, manipulation that feels like empowerment. You're not forced to participate in systems that exploit you. You're invited to express your authentic self through voluntary participation in those systems. The most perverse aspect of this dynamic is that it makes you responsible for your own oppression. When the system claims to be serving your authentic desires, your dissatisfaction becomes evidence of your failure to know yourself correctly, rather than evidence of systemic dysfunction. If you're unhappy with your choices, you obviously need to dig deeper into your authentic self, rather than questioning the range of choices available. Žižek reveals that capitalism has achieved something unprecedented in human history: the colonization of the unconscious itself. Your desires, fantasies, and dreams have been captured and redirected to serve capital accumulation. You don't just work for capitalism, you desire for capitalism. Your liminal energy has been harnessed to reproduce the very system that frustrates your deeper human needs. This operates through what psychoanalysis calls surplus jouissance, the excess pleasure that keeps you attached to systems that fundamentally dissatisfy you. The pleasure you get from shopping isn't proportional to the utility of what you buy. The pleasure you get from social media isn't proportional to the quality of connection it provides. The pleasure you get from competition isn't proportional to what you actually win. This surplus pleasure serves a crucial economic function. It creates psychological dependency on systems that don't serve your rational interests. You become addicted not to specific products, but to the experience of consuming, not to particular content, but to the experience of scrolling, not to winning, but to the experience of competing. The genius of this system is that it provides just enough real pleasure to maintain your attachment, while withholding the deeper satisfactions that would make you independent of the system. You get enough sexual stimulation to stay interested, but not enough intimacy to feel fulfilled. You get enough social recognition to stay engaged, but not enough community to feel connected. You get enough creative expression to stay motivated, but not enough autonomy to feel empowered. This creates what Žižek calls capitalist hedonism, a form of pleasure-seeking that paradoxically increases rather than decreases your dependency on external sources of satisfaction. The more you pursue happiness through consumption, the more you need to consume to maintain the same level of happiness. The more you seek fulfillment through achievement, the more you need to achieve to feel the same sense of worth. The superego of late capitalism doesn't tell you what you can't do. It tells you what you must enjoy. And it makes you feel guilty when you fail to optimize your enjoyment correctly. This creates a new form of psychological control that operates through pleasure rather than prohibition, seduction rather than coercion, optimization rather than oppression. You must enjoy your work, but not too much. That would be unprofessional. You must enjoy your relationships, but not in ways that threaten economic productivity. You must enjoy your consumption, but in ways that generate data and drive further consumption. You must enjoy your freedom, but only within parameters that serve existing power structures. This superego operates through what Žižek calls pseudo-transgression, carefully managed forms of rebellion that serve to reinforce rather than challenge the system. You're encouraged to break rules, but only certain rules in certain ways at certain times. You're invited to be authentic, but only in ways that can be monetized and commodified. You're told to follow your dreams, but only dreams that fit within existing market categories. The result is a form of liberation that functions as control, authenticity that serves inauthenticity, and rebellion that reinforces conformity. You feel free while being perfectly managed, authentic while being completely artificial, rebellious while being totally compliant. So here's the truth that Žižek spends his career articulating through his manic intellectual performances. You are not the victim of ideology. You are ideology's most successful product. You've been so perfectly programmed to desire your own exploitation that you can't imagine authentic alternatives. Your very sense of freedom, authenticity, and pleasure has been colonized by forces that use these feelings to control you more completely than any external authority ever could. But recognizing this isn't cause for despair. It's the beginning of genuine freedom. When you understand how ideology operates through your unconscious desires rather than your conscious beliefs, you can begin to develop what Žižek calls ideological awareness, the capacity to see how your own psychology serves systems of power. This doesn't mean becoming a cynical observer who sees through everything while changing nothing. That cynical distance is itself an ideological position that serves power by neutralizing resistance. True ideological awareness means recognizing that your desires, pleasures, and even your resistances have been shaped by forces beyond your control, and then choosing how to respond to this recognition. The authentic act of freedom isn't fulfilling your desires. It's questioning why you desire what you desire and choosing to relate differently to your own psychology. Instead of being driven by unconscious compulsions toward goals that don't serve you, you can develop what Žižek calls authentic desire. Wanting that emerges from genuine self-knowledge rather than ideological programming. This requires what psychoanalysis calls traversing the fundamental fantasy, the painful process of recognizing that your deepest beliefs about yourself and the world are largely constructed rather than natural. It means giving up the comforting illusion that your preferences are expressions of your true self, and accepting the disturbing reality that your true self is largely a product of social forces you don't control. But this traversal opens up genuine possibilities for change. When you stop being unconsciously driven by ideological imperatives, you can begin to choose consciously how to live. When you stop mistaking your programmed desires for authentic needs, you can begin to discover what you actually want. When you stop confusing your conditioned responses for free choices, you can begin to act with genuine freedom. The revolution isn't just political, it's psychoanalytic. It begins when you stop taking your own desires at face value and start investigating their origins. It continues when you stop trying to satisfy wants that serve other people's interests and start creating possibilities that serve your authentic development. It culminates when you stop being ideology's unconscious agent and become consciousness's deliberate creator. Žižek offers no easy path to this freedom, no simple techniques for escaping ideological control. He offers only the disturbing recognition that everything you think you know about your own motivations might be wrong, and the possibility that acknowledging this wrongness might be the beginning of genuine autonomy. The choice is yours. Remain comfortable in your beautiful prison of manufactured desires, or risk the uncertainty of authentic self-discovery. Your unconscious and the future of human possibility hangs in the balance. Stop wanting what you're supposed to want. Start wanting what serves your actual development. The difference might just save your soul,